Hi, this is Dan here. I hope you're doing really well. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you that bass line. That is a Prince bass line from his 32nd album, Planet Earth, which was bizarrely released for free via the mail on Sunday in the UK and Ireland. I remember receiving that and thinking, this is weird, but what a great album. And that bass line is recorded by Joshua Dunham, and I suspect written by Prince. So you can download the bass line below. Here it is. It's only 2 bars. And that's the bass line with some variations I'll teach you later. I'm going to show you the technique, how to play it, and then break down a little bit about the progression and the song. But it's that all the way through. We'll start here. We have octaves, B flat to C. Even here, as I'm thinking about it, there's a little bit going on. You can play the B flat on the 6th to the 8th frets of the E string, and we'll get to that maybe a bit later. But for now, B flat is the 1st fret of the A string, C is the 3rd. And you've got this familiar shape of an octave. I've got the 1st finger pressed down on the 1st fret, and then 2 frets higher and 2 strings higher is where you find the octave. I'm using my little finger. Many bassists, when they're playing down towards the 1st position, the first few frets of the bass, will not use 1 finger per fret and instead use the little finger. It lessens the stretch, it keeps the wrist a little straighter, and it's just a little bit easier. You can use your 3rd finger if you really want. So here I'm resting on the E string with my thumb to mute it. I'm actually also just touching the underside of the 1st finger, or the tip of the 1st finger on the underside of the E string to further mute it. And that 1st finger is also just touching the D string because you really want muting to be happening at all times when you're playing bass. Now the notes are short. Those dots under all the notes apart from one of the ones at the end, it is a dot, it's a staccato. And note length is so important in this bass line. If you listen to Joshua Dunham's playing, there are a few variations, but mainly it's short. You won't really see brilliantly on this camera angle, but I'm just coming off the note with my fingertip, either the 1st or the little finger, after I've played the note. As you come off, the note stops. I'm never coming away from the actual string itself. So there's a little bit of a touch thing to get used to, just a timing thing. You've got your index finger taking care of the A string, and then the longer middle finger is ready and waiting for the G string. That's how you're going to play octaves here. So it's 2 lots of those. Then you shift quickly to the C, 2 frets higher. Now you can keep the same hand shape. My thumb is roughly behind the 1st finger in this case. My hand is just angled a little bit just to keep that shape. Then we've got this little run here. If you listen to the original, which I suggest you do, you'll hear that that 2nd to last note is slightly longer. On musical notation, that is denoted by a line under the note. It's called tenuto, and it means to play that note for the full duration of it. These are all 8th notes. So apart from the A flat, everything's in 1st position. We have an F, and again octaves. But this time I'm not keeping my 1st finger on the F. Or the low F. As soon as it's finished doing its job, you need to move to the E flat, which is the 1st fret of the D string. Open D after that. When you play open strings, it's often difficult to control them and to stop them from ringing out. So it's what you have to do there. As you are coming down to the C, which is the next note after the D, you need to stop that open string D, otherwise you'll get this. You don't want them ringing into each other. You might find your own way to do this, and if you do, go for it. The way I tend to do it is to just use the fingers that are coming down to play the next note to also touch and stop the D string in this case. Sometimes, especially if I'm out of practice, will not get that touch down and I'll hear that string ringing out and it really annoys me. Okay, so be careful with that note. So C, B flat after that. Now the A flat we have to shift to it. And it's octaves again. Notice it's exactly the same pattern as the B flat and the C. All octaves. See there, even I'm practicing as I'm teaching you this, that D wasn't quite right. Open string, if you really want to get granular with this, an open string is always going to sound a bit different to a fretted note, and it's always going to be slightly different to play that. So I suppose you could play it 5th fret A string if you wanted to, but you can try that if you want. I think it lies under the fingers nicely in this position here. So let's try playing the B flat and the C in the first bar on the 6th fret to the 8th fret on the E string. There is a bonus to doing it here, which is that you can play more ghost notes. There are occasions in the song where Joshua does stuff like this. Ghost notes. So whether you copy what he does or you add your own thing in, I think it's quite a good idea to practice playing it on the E string. I'll just slow that down. So this is the 6th fret of the E string and then the 8th fret of the D string, those B flat octaves. If you're just playing octaves in eighths, you're just going index to middle. Controlling the note length by coming off the strings. Then that's what I'm doing. After the higher D string octave, my fingers are now touching the strings but nothing's pressing down. So you get that dead sound or ghost note sound. And I'm using more than one finger to avoid getting a harmonic. Okay, that's quite important. So as I'm looking down, my 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers are touching. And my little finger is just touching here, but I'm not actually plucking that. So now plucking with the index, let's do just that. Then middle. I think that's what I was doing up to speed. It's slightly odd because you're going middle, middle at the end. I'm sure there are other fingering patterns. If you find your own, do it. Now, when we're on the C, that's the 8th fret with the octaves. As you're touching the string to play the ghost note, that could be the time that you shift all the way back to the F. There's nowhere else you can play that low F but the 1st fret. I think sometimes I was hearing a slide into the B flat from the A flat, in which case you would definitely play it on the E string. I have mentioned a few times in this lesson for you to go and listen to the original. And I think so much of becoming a good bass player is about listening to lots of different styles of music and really listening hard for exact moments that a bass player is playing in a song. They might change things, note length, add in a technique here. It's very good for your ears, that. And the more you match that, I think the more that you improve. We have 4 flats. That's the key of A flat major, or its relative minor, F minor. Now everything's centered around F, so this is the key of F minor. B flat minor, we're just playing roots, we're not doing anything, we're not outlining any other notes of the chord there. Then C minor, same thing. If you were to, that's B flat minor, 7. show you that. So 6th fret E string, we have the root. 2 frets higher on the next string is the 5th. And then frets 6 to 8 on the D string is the flat 7th and the octave. Those notes will always work over a minor chord. C, 2 frets higher, same thing. Let's do this. F, 8th fret of the A string, same, because it's F minor. That's obviously not the bass line, it's just much simpler than that. Octaves. And here's the weird thing. Don't know why this works, it just does. Look at that D natural. Why is there a D natural and not a D flat? It outlines a Dorian mode. I'll play this on the 8th fret of the A string. This is F natural minor. It's a scale you definitely should know. Basically F to F in the musical alphabet with the accidentals of the key signature. That's sharps or flats, in this case B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. If you play exactly those notes again, but instead of a D flat you play a D natural, you get an F Dorian scale or mode. That is the second mode of E flat major. Regardless of all that theory stuff, what you can see is that it's just one note different. And a Dorian mode, it contains intervals, flat 3rd, flat 7th, and major 6th in particular, which sound really funky. They're used a lot in funk music. So I'm fascinated. I would love to know how Prince came up with this, and I doubt he was thinking about any of those things, but regardless, you have this really lovely rundown of the Dorian scale. Actually, whilst I'm thinking about it, I did hear that every now and again. So B flat, octaves, and then running up chromatically. So B natural now, 2nd fret, leading into that C, or you could do that 6th fret, 7th to 8th. Notice how your shorter index finger is plucking the E string and the longer middle finger is ready and waiting for the D string, which is why you should be able to build up the speed. Here you have the hand in that shape, slightly angled, both fingers ready for the octaves. Sort of crawling along as you go. It's not really a shift, it's not really a big shift. It's not an easy bass line, but I think it is a great bass line. Now, if you like funk bass lines like this, I have a funk bass course that has 40 bass grooves that I break down a little bit like this, showing you the key, the techniques, what fills you can add in, and I'll put a link to that below. I mentioned fills before, and I will show you this, even though if you ever play this live, I would say don't put in a fill. But since we're in the key of F minor, the reason you wouldn't fill is because the song is really built around the bass line. And if you play a fill, you do not therefore play the rundown. That's why it just wouldn't make any sense. But look what fits. Anything F minor pentatonic or blues. That's all F minor, F pentatonic, F minor pentatonic, or F minor blues scale. That fits. I mentioned the Dorian, so you could, I suppose, do that. That's just a Dorian mode and playing notes around that. That's it, really. It's a very simple 2-bar line. You can go to my site via the link below and download that 2-bar tab, and you can just have a look at it. Have a look at the notation as well, so if you can learn to read that. It's 124 beats per minute. I just loaded up the metronome app in Logic, and I selected kick drum, which is the start of the song as a kick drum. And playing it up to speed is great, but if you can't, you just play it slowly. However fast you can play it, just do it like that. Hold your bass properly, get your technique going. This is a good one to aim for. If you have any other suggestions of really great bass lines, do leave them in the comment below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next lesson.